The art of homage, or showing proper respect to someone else's work through your own, is a treacherous path. Getting a big-name character or license certainly gives a project recognition, but the expectations of the fanbase are immediately thrust on the project, with demands as specific as they are relentless. A proper homage can't just be a simple slew of references, or it'll feel flat to its audience. It can't be too wild of a departure, or fans will cry that it's a betrayal of its source material. And if it's not, in some way, an evolution of a previous concept, and executed well, then it'll be dismissed as either boring or a waste of time. Despite all these risks, however, there is always one exciting possibility with an homage: exceeding expectations. An audience might know some of what they want, but giving them more on top of that can be mind-blowing. Few things build a stronger bridge of trust between a creator and a fanbase than proper respect of the material they've been given. Just this year, such a bridge was built in the most unexpected of places: Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle. More specifically, in the boss stage Top Banana, and its perfect love letter to Donkey Kong as a whole, in Rabbid Kong. Many players, myself included, were more than a little apprehensive at the pre-release reveal of Rabbid Kong, and of the Rabbids crossing over with Mario in general. It's not just the surprising resemblance to another popular property with ovular characters that make funny noises and dominate marketing, but rather what the Rabbids seem to represent. From Rayman Raving Rabbids' release in 2006 to Rayman Origins' release in 2011, the Rayman series was completely swallowed up by these tiny bunny abominations. Rayman was featured less and less prominently until he was phased out completely, the Rabbids standing on their own and growing quite a bit more popular than Rayman himself. Rayman was able to bounce back with excellent 2D side-scrollers, but this wasn't until a complete separation and a change in direction from the Rabbids was taken. Meanwhile, the Rabbids remained firmly in control of Rayman's design and the look of his world that he'd been developing since Rayman 2. While Mario would be too big and too not made by Ubisoft to suffer the same fate, a worry set in that the Rabbids would completely overwhelm and obscure the Mushroom Kingdom crew. At worst, the game could be insulting to fans of the Italian plum good guy and hero of fungi, and a dopey-eyed Frankenstein's monster-looking amalgamation of Donkey Kong and a Rabbid only seemed to heighten that panic. Fortunately, and incredibly surprisingly, Rabbid Kong does absolutely everything right in his boss encounter. His first great success is in capturing the character of Donkey Kong perfectly, and using the Rabbid fusion to accentuate his personality traits. When boiled down to it, Donkey Kong is a very straightforward character. He's fun-loving, easily provoked, has a single-minded obsession with bananas, and is perhaps a bit full of himself. Rabbid Kong's animations, and the way he's presented, play to this perfectly. Rabbid Kong's idle stance is taken right from DK's Donkey Kong 64 artwork, and he is highly animated, either pacified in joy with a banana, or showing off some of his musculature. He's not just a dopey-eyed, brainless brute. Donkey Kong's biggest flaws are multiplied by 10, and it's great to see. Hitting Rabbid Kong rewards the player of an animation of him looking slightly annoyed, and then remembering, oh yeah, I have bananas, taking a bite, and laughing it off. It gives him a great antagonistic but playful vibe. A fantastic analog to his attitude in the Mario vs. Donkey Kong games and Punch-Out, and it feels entirely faithful to the character. And the moment when he loses his bananas, literally, oh man. His animations of complete horror, depression, and desperation to reclaim them are some of the best idle animations out there. It's just endlessly amusing seeing him go through his cycle again and again and again. Rabbid Kong is a multifaceted creature, however, and does not just tackle homage in a single way. While his animations strongly represent Donkey Kong the character, his sound design gives off a flair for the Donkey Kong Country series as a whole. Every time that Rabid Kong's bananas appear or vanish, a simple will play. This effect is the same that plays when DK or Diddy pick up a banana bunch in the original Donkey Kong Country. This detail was entirely unneeded and could have been replaced with one of the in-house developed sounds for the game. But the fact that the team was willing to reach back for such a small detail really shows how much they cared about getting DK and his universe right. Secondly, and perhaps most obviously, is Rabid Kong's theme. Composed by Grant Kirkhope, who also did the soundtrack to Donkey Kong 64, RK's theme is a strong departure from the rest of the soundtrack. Starting with a powerful and intimidating remix of the classic DK Island Swing, the track continues to be very over-the-top and bombastic, including a small remix from the Crystal Caves boss from DK64 as well. While this song fits in with Kirkhope's very whimsical style, the heavy emphasis on brass, and his choice for bringing things in like a trombone and having a tuba solo of all things, feels very much in line with his compositions from the Nintendo 64 era, and especially Donkey Kong 64. The blaring trumpets gave DK64's boss music a very distinct sound, and Rabid Kong's theme reflects this in full, giving it that perfect Donkey Kong feeling. And then Grant does some great stuff with minor to major chord progression for each phase of the fight, but that doesn't really have anything to do with homage. It's just because he's smart about music and it helps the fight progress excellently. Love you, Grant. So, we've got Rabid Kong himself repping DK's character and his sound work repping Donkey Kong Country, but it's the gameplay of the Rabid Kong fight that stands out and pays homage to DK's appearances as a boss. Through Mario plus Rabbids, your objective is usually to carve through swaths of enemies while taking as little damage as possible, or to take out fields of enemies as effectively as possible. Rabid Kong doesn't play by those rules. He's invincible as long as he's got bananas, and you've got to run up to him, dump them into the abyss, and hurt him while he's mourning. Before you can start anything though, Rabid Kong knocks Mario's party back with a huge stage-covering shockwave. Up to this point in the game, Mario and friends could use various movement tactics to take care of enemies and quickly hide behind cover, but Rabid Kong actively destroys these safety nets and forces you to play his way. Get into one of the few safe spaces and run up to him to take his prize. This, in effect, creates the same gameplay feel as DK's appearances in the original Donkey Kong, especially its first level. DK completely controls the flow there, forcing Mario through a few safe areas without ever really catching his breath, lest another barrel come down and make what was safe dangerous again. Rabid Kong does the same, making Mario find temporary sanctuary whenever possible before swooping in. Each phase of Rabid Kong's fight even has its own minions to complicate the main threat, feeling very much like the fireballs in the classic game. And finally, the boss features a 3-phase system, which isn't used before this fight. 3 hits to beat him is a Mario staple for bosses, and keeping that withheld until Mario is fighting an actual character from his universe gives the fight a flavor of authenticity it wouldn't otherwise have. Rabid Kong is the epitome of how Donkey Kong should feel as a boss, and he didn't even need to throw a barrel to do it. Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle is not all that cohesive a fusion. A few areas feel a bit groan-worthy, the Rabbids do take up a considerable amount of presence and screen time, and there are some immersion-breaking and very non-Mario-feeling moments. But it's moments like the Rabid Kong boss battle that absolutely make up for these, and show the efforts of a team that really wanted to make their audience smile. This game has other good moments, such as characterizing Bowser Jr. as a bratty and overzealous kid trying to live up to his loving but overbearing father, but none of them quite get as much out of the cast as Rabid Kong. Even his defeat, a very obvious King Kong parody, leads to one of the biggest laughs in the game, and gives Luigi some of his best physical comedy in years. Rabbid Kong elevates not only himself, but the game around him as a whole, and can bring a smile to even the most demanding fan's face while giving a fresh, fun experience. And that is how you design for Homage.